Hey everyone, this is my first video on YouTube, so thank you very much for watching it, and I think it's going to be one of the more important videos that I'll ever post. So these are some strategies that I came up helping me get into medical school, and I think they will be very useful for you too. When I was getting ready for my interview, I watched all the videos on YouTube on how to answer certain questions, how you're supposed to look down when you're thinking and not look up, because when you look up, you look like you're confused, stuff like that. We're not going to go into that here. This is going to be completely different advice that you're not going to find in any other video on the internet, and I'm really grateful that you're taking the time to watch this one. So let's get right into it. The first thing you have to do is make sure you talk to every single person at your interview and get to know them just a little bit. So when you show up at the interview, everyone's going to pretty much be nervously sitting there in their uncomfortable suit and formal attire, and they're going to be looking around and they're going to be looking at the people in the room as competitors. And you cannot do this. If you get bogged down in the competitor mindset, you're going to lose, okay? Because you're not approaching this from the right perspective. These people are your potential classmates, and you need to treat them as if they already are your classmates, okay? What I did at all my interviews is I walked around and I talked to every single person there. And what happens when you do this is not only does it make everyone else in the room way more comfortable, but it makes you more comfortable too. So when that time finally goes for you to walk on into your interviewer's door and you have to have this really nerve-wracking conversation, guess what? You just broke the ice with everyone in the room. You've already broken the ice so many times today that this is just going to be another conversation that you're going to have. On top of that, you need to assume that the admissions committee is watching you, right? That's why we tell you not to use your phone. You just shouldn't even bring your phone into the interview. But I think you should, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. It's very important. So when you're walking around and talking to everyone, every time the admissions people are looking, they're going to see you with a different group of people. And something's going to click in their head and they're going to say, hold up, who is this person? How is it that they get along with everyone in the room so well? They might fit in our campus really well. I see them getting along with so many people. That's a good look. And that's something you want them to think about when they're reviewing your application and deciding whether or not they're going to accept you, right? The opposite is true too. When you kind of break the ice with everyone, it really helps your classmates out. So imagine you're at a party and you're trying to figure out who's the coolest person in the room. There's always a social hierarchy everywhere you go. Usually the coolest person in the room is the person who everyone pays the most attention to. Usually it's the person who talks to everyone and seems to know everyone and has a relationship with everyone. And you're being put in an atmosphere where you have a relationship with no one and you know nobody. What I'm challenging you to do is try to build a relationship with people, okay? Case in point, at my first interview this past year, I made friends with this guy, Sam King, and we kind of hit it off. It turns out we were both from Philly, and we kind of laughed. We were like, wouldn't it be amazing if we could both get into PCOM together? And sure enough, guess what? We're classmates now. And I got his phone number back there. It's just amazing to have that kind of relationship that I bring along with me. On top of that, I also made friends on Instagram with other people too, and we get to follow each other throughout the rest of our journeys for the rest of our lives, and I think that's really, really cool. So you should go into the interview with an abundance mindset where you're going to be building friends rather than going in with a scarcity mindset that you need to go in there and beat out all these people and go in there and take the trophy and run away and hide in your corner and get your medical school acceptance. Because honestly, that stuff's not even going to fly, man. And if you're going to try to become a doctor and have this kind of mindset, it might not really be for you. The whole point of being a physician is to show that you have the ability to build rapport with people, you get along with people, and people are going to trust you. And if you're going into and you're just trying to get one over on everybody else, I don't really know if this is going to be the best choice of a career for you, seriously. So next up on the list is bring a cup of water. So if you don't hear me, I am actually clearing my throat a lot. That's why we always stay hydrated. So when you're walking around on the interview, it can be kind of exhausting talking to a lot of people. Bringing a cup of coffee is an excellent way to keep yourself kind of perky. You're going to be running on a lot of natural adrenaline as it is. This you just have to kind of take in. If you're a coffee drinker, if you're not, no worries, don't do it. Maybe just drink a cup of water. But always have some kind of drink on you because you're going to want to keep your vocal cords hydrated. You're going to want to keep your voice sounding nice. And you're also just going to want to keep yourself energized and engaged. So for me, coffee is my go-to. And then when the time comes for me to go to the interview, I actually bring in a cup of water because I did have one interview that I failed, and that was a previous application cycle. And it was because my throat kept clogging up, and I kept all the time. And my interviewers were kind of looking at me like cockeyed, like, geez, what's the matter with this guy? So on top of the fact that they were already grilling me, I wasn't really able to talk without sounding like a total weirdo because I just kept feeling the need to clear my throat.
So I was editing this and I forgot to include a very important detail, and that is using your cup of water strategically as a way to put a gap between you and your interviewer's question. So you're always going to have canned answers, generally speaking, to the more generic things. Tell me about yourself, or what about this ethical situation? You've probably heard it on YouTube or thought about it. But if you just take a second to pause, sip your water, run through your bullet points, and then speak, you'll come across much more genuine than as if you had just blurted the answer out, as if you put no thought into it. It shows that you have a canned answer, and it comes off as a lot less authentic.
So this is going to segue us into the next point of get to know your interviewer before you actually meet them. And this is where your cell phone comes in. Everyone says not to use a cell phone at the interview, and I couldn't agree more. However, cell phones are very useful for getting contact information from potential classmates and other people who you made friends with during the day, and it's very important for researching your interviewers, okay? So you need to pull this bad boy out right here the second you find out who your interviewers are and run your butt to the bathroom and look them up and figure out what their research is. Part of being a doctor, a very important part of being a doctor, is being able to relate, understand, and build rapport with your patient. And through that, we develop trust. And through trust, you get accepted into medical school. So, if you figure out the names of your two interviewers, you take your phone in the bathroom, you go on the internet, and you look up a brief history of their research, their careers, and you get an idea of what kind of questions you should be catering towards your interviewer at the end of your interview, and where you should try to guide the conversation you two are about to have. Very often is it that students will get in an interview, have no idea anything about the people who are interviewing them, and they're literally just sitting themselves there, opening up to potentially being grilled about their application. Now, I'm not saying you go and hijack the conversation, because it is a conversation. And so what this means is that when you're answering questions, you are able to sprinkle in information that your interviewer might grab onto and extend into further elaboration while you two converse and talk with each other, okay? Let me make a great example of this. I interviewed at this one school, and they had a campus climate survey where they were asking the students about how they felt comfortable, was the school providing them with the resources they needed to feel emotionally satiated. And it was just a random little thing I saw on the website. You also need to look at the entire website of the school you're going to interview at and just like look at every single page and read every single word. Okay, because you never know when these things are going to come in handy. So I got this one interviewer, and I asked her about the campus climate survey, and she says, wow, I'm so glad you asked about that because I'm the one running the survey. What do you think this did to my application? When this person was writing their notes about me when I left, do you think they were happy, or do you think that they were upset with the interview? That I closed off the interview by asking something that was personal to them. Now, I understand this one was a coincidence, but the next two are not. At one of the interviews, I had a professor, and he was talking to me about a back injury. I had history in spine surgery, and for about 10 minutes of the interview, I was talking to him about his experience with pain and his experience with receiving spine surgery. And sure enough, he's also a neuroscience professor, so he can communicate very intelligently about his condition. He's very aware and educated of it, and I can show that I have the ability to understand his condition, speak with him about it, empathize about it, and make a connection and build trust. Sure enough, after the interview, our conversation went so well, we actually walked together and got coffee, and like, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, we have to stop talking, you have to go to your next interview now. What do you think happened? I got into that school. Next interview after that, I was talking to one of my interviewers, again, a neuroscience professor. I knew this going in. She also had told me when I was there. I acted surprised to find out, and then I just proceeded to continue asking questions about neuroscience, her research, and finding ways to relate to them. While you're at the interview, it's safe to assume that these people have already read your application. Many have not, however, and it's not really important that you go there and you flex out all your details and you show them the greatest achievements you've ever made. Instead, you should go in it and try to say, how can I make friends with these people? You should look at your interviewer as someone you're going to see around every day, and you would want to be friends with them. So if you wanted to be friends with someone, how would you approach a conversation versus if you wanted to impress someone? Because certainly, impressing people doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become their friend. So try to approach it from that paradigm instead. So I just want to touch on this really quickly. At the end of one of my interviews, everyone was really talking to each other and everyone got really comfortable, and the admissions committee actually came into us and they said, this is the most comfortable interview group we've ever seen in our history of working here, and we just want to really commend you guys for how well you get along. We think you're going to make great students. When they say something like that, that means that everybody in the room wins. Everybody in the room wins. And when the admissions committee are looking and they're saying that this is a really comfortable group of students, it's going to increase your chances of getting accepted. It's going to increase everyone in the room's chances of getting accepted. So by talking to others and making friends, you are helping the entire team out. Look at it that way. I also can't stress this one enough. When I was interviewing at my very first school, I got a late interview and I was sitting at a table and there were all these students around me talking about all the schools they had already interviewed at, and I was thinking to myself, oh man, this is my first interview. Oh man, I'm so nervous. Everyone around me has gotten all these interviews. What's wrong with me? And I didn't even end up getting in there. I didn't want to go there. I had terrible vibes from the entire school. The entire day was just bad. And so it worked out, actually. But the way that listening to other students talk about other schools made me feel was very insignificant, and it did quite a number on my psyche for the day. It made me feel really bad about myself. And so I actually realized this, but yet I still perpetuated it. And it was such a dumb thing to do, and I would never want anyone to do this ever again. Once I was at an interview, and I was talking about an interview I had at this other school, and I was talking to my friends while we were eating, and I was saying man, they're doing all this cool stuff with their campus, they're building these great buildings, I can't believe how amazing of a school that this is going to become, no wonder they're top 3, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until after I left I realized, oh my god, I just became that jerk. And everyone in the room probably hates me for that. So I really, really would ask you, do not talk about other interviews while you are interviewing. Look, you're here at this school because they gave you a chance to get in. You should be talking about all things related to this school and that school only. The things you like, even maybe things you don't like, just talk about that stuff, but don't go comparing it and relating it to other things, because you don't know where other people's opportunities stand. This could be their only shot at getting into medical school, and maybe it's their dream school. And for you to walk into someone's dream and just say, oh, this is crap, it's no good, it's not 5-star Hyatt or whatever, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Lastly, I've got some tips for guys at the interview, okay? So, first of all, having a beard is a universal sign of being knowledgeable and being worldly and being cool. So, having a beard, I would always recommend it if it's something that looks good on you. If you're choosing between going clean shaven and wearing a beard, I would go for the beard. Keep it trim, keep it tight. That looks good. It adds professionalism points. If you wear glasses, I would recommend wearing glasses over contacts. When you wear contacts, stuff can go wrong. They could dry up, they could fall out. It's another variable you have to account for. And they don't look as nerdy as glasses. When you think of a bookworm, they're always wearing glasses. When you think of someone who reads a lot and studies a lot, it's usually someone who wears glasses. When I ask you to picture a nerd, you think of someone who's wearing glasses. And you want to play into that card, okay? You want to fit that mold. So heuristics are basically like mental shortcuts that our brain uses to profile things as good and bad. A lot of ads play on these. So if you ever look at like someone trying to sell like a vapor pen and they put like a leaf and they write in green lettering, they're like, oh, it's healthy. Like anything like with green is like healthy. Or like, you know, you have like some like farm that's selling like their eggs, but it's actually just a factory. Right, it reminds you of the good old days and like the Midwest and stuff like that, but it's just not true. So those are what heuristics are, and we can play into that in the way that we dress and represent ourselves so that people can interpret us as being more professional.
But just being totally clear here, our goal is not to manipulate people. It's just to play into being the best, most presentable version of ourselves. Okay? Manipulation is not cool. It's very uncool to misrepresent yourself as being someone who you're not. That's not what I'm trying to encourage. I'm just trying to give you a little background into the psychology of what heuristics are and how we can use them to better convey our proper intentions towards the medical profession. Alright, what up? I just want to say thank you if you made it this far. Also thank you if you didn't. That's cool too, at least you tried. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I know it's a very typical thing to say. I have a lot of really good ideas that I want to come up with and share with you, and there's definitely going to be more coming through the pipeline. So leave a comment below, tell me the types of things you'd like to see in the future, what else I could kind of help you all with, what you'd like to hear about, and I'd be more than happy to deliver it. So again, thank you very much.